Okay, let's try and unpack this because, wow, if you felt like the news cycle lately is less a stream and more, I don't know, a fire hose pointed straight at your
Yeah,
face.
you're definitely not alone there. It's been chaotic.
Absolutely. One minute you're tracking like complex global politics, the next it's this bizarre social media fight between former officials and tech billionaires.
Exactly.
So we're diving into that chaotic scroll today, trying to, separate the signal from all that noise, find those moments where it all kind of clicks.
And what's really compelling, I think, is seeing how fast public talk and even, international relations can get twisted or reshaped.
All right.
Not just by policy, but by a single tweet, basically, or a fact check that pops up instantly.
Uh-huh.
So our mission today, cut through the static, connect those dots that seem totally unrelated, and hopefully give you a clearer way to see what it all means.
That's the plan. A deep dive into the great global scroll where every headline is fighting for your eyeballs. And speaking of fighting online,
Yeah.
let's kick things off with this pretty dramatic digital diplomacy mess.
Oh, yeah, that one.
It had everyone wondering if they'd just wandered into like the world's angriest comment section.
Pretty much.
So first up, former White House trade guy Peter Navarro, he gets on X, Twitter, and just launches this fierce attack on India,
I said, fuck.
claiming India was buying Russian oil purely to profit. And his words, feeding the Russian war machine in Ukraine. Super direct, really theatrical language.
He was definitely designed to grab attention, a very specific narrative he was pushing there,
Yeah.
suggesting India was doing something seriously wrong, politically and economically.
But then, and this is where it gets really interesting, like pop culture analogy interested, Navarro posts this fiery take,
Oh.
okay? And almost instantly, X's own fact-checking system jumps in. It's like Navarro tried to use a cheat code, right? And the game's AI just went, ding, nope,
Yeah.
misinformation detected.
That's one way to put it.
Seriously. And X specifically said, look, India's energy security is a legit factor here, and crucially, these oil buys didn't actually break any sanctions, a direct counter from the platform itself.
Which really does raise that big question.
Yeah.
How much power do these social media platforms actually have when they decide to fact-check sensitive global stuff? Does it
Yeah.
clarify things or just muddy the waters even more, you think?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, on one hand, great for stopping maybe obvious lies, but
Yeah.
then you've got a private company acting like the referee in global politics. It's complicated.
Very complicated.
And Navarro's reaction, oh boy, pure online meltdown mode. He called the fact check a crap note.
A crab note, seriously.
Yep, a crap note sounds like a kid complaining about homework feedback, not a former advisor.
Ugh.
Then he accuses Elon Musk of letting propaganda run wild, like arguing with the umpire mid-game. We even had the director of the Hindu American Foundation step in, calling out Navarro's false villainization. It was a total internet spectacle, but with, actual diplomatic ripples.
But despite all that online noise, that very public fight, what's really fascinating is how different the actual diplomatic vibe seems to be.
Right. Totally different.
Our sources are showing a pretty significant thaw in India-U.S. relations. Like, former President Trump recently said he will always be friends with India.
And Modi jumped right back in, saying fully reciprocate.
Exactly. They apparently praised each other, talked up the ties. It paints this picture of, well, underlying friendliness that just clashes completely with the online drama.
Yeah.
Suggests there's a more complex game being played behind the scenes.
So yeah, you see these big political names basically having Twitter spats, but the official lines are all positive. What does that even tell you?
Shows the layers, I suppose.
It really highlights that massive gap between formal diplomacy and the just wild west of social media, doesn't it? Makes you wonder which reality matters more long term.
Definitely food for thought.
Okay, let's pivot now. Sticking with former President Trump, because he was definitely making headlines elsewhere this week, too.
Seems like it.
Sources are talking about silent preps. Sounds intriguing for a possible Trump-Xi meeting in South Korea this October. Maybe on the edges of the APEC summit.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting, yeah.
And this isn't just like grabbing coffee. It's being framed as potentially pivotal for trade, for security. You can almost feel the global uh-ohs and maybe swirling around that idea.
Well, talks at that level, especially between those two leaders, would be hugely significant. They could touch on the trade deal status, maybe easing up on tech fights, shifting talk around Taiwan or the South China Sea.
Big stuff.
Yeah, big stuff. APEC offers that less formal space for them to kind of gauge each other's current thinking on really complex issues. Could definitely shape what comes next.
And speaking of shaping things, our sources also served up some let's call them unfiltered headlines about Trump's domestic side. One report flat out claimed he's weaponizing the government to settle personal scores and pursue his agenda. That's a heavy statement.
That is a very serious allegation, yeah.
Then there's this proposal. Rename the Pentagon the Department of War. Which, okay, sounds kind of intense, but apparently may cost taxpayers over $1 billion.
$1 billion for a name change.
Right, $1 billion. For that kind of money, you'd expect more than just a new sign, maybe like laser sharks guarding the entrance. I don't know. But seriously, it's a big symbolic shift and a huge price tag.
Look, these kinds of reported actions, especially using government power in that alleged way, or a $1 billion rebrand of a core institution, they definitely raise questions, big questions about, institutional integrity, public trust. Even if they aren't feasible proposals, they affect how people see government, the stability of norms. It signals a potential change in how things operate, which has ripples domestically and internationally.
And just when you think the headline couldn't get more eye-popping, another claim resurfaced that Trump was FBI informant against Jeffrey Epstein.
That story again.
Yeah, and you couple that with the whole ongoing mystery of the missing minute from Epstein's jail video, plus victims pushing hard for answers. It just keeps that whole awful story right in the spotlight.
It really does.
It's like this grim, real-life true crime podcast that drops a new cliffhanger episode every few months. Everyone's still asking, what happened in that minute? What's the full story there?
And the Epstein scandal, sadly, it does cast this incredibly long, dark shadow. These claims, verified or not, they keep it visible.
Yeah.
They really highlight those murky links between wealth, power, justice, and it keeps affecting different political figures. The public demand for answers in a case like this just shows this broader desire for accountability, no matter who's involved.
That whole theme of power and justice, it reminds us that policy decisions have real human consequences too, often hidden from the big headlines.
Absolutely.
Like, for a lot of people, the prized H-1B visa, that's the one letting U.S. companies hire foreign workers for specialized jobs, is apparently nothing but ashes.
That's strong wording.
It is. Sources say there's real fear among Indians with H-1B visas about even traveling outside the U.S. because of a reported crackdown during the Trump administration.
And this is crucial because it shows how these sort of technical policy changes can ripple out and hit people hard.
Totally.
Beyond the politics that fear H-1B holders reportedly feel. It's not just inconvenience. It speaks to how uncertain their status feels, losing jobs, the personal stress on families who've built lives here.
Yeah.
It really shows that human cost behind what might look like just administrative tweaks makes you think about the real-world impact.
Okay, so from policy complexities to, well, something that sounds like a literal action movie scene, this next bit is wild.
Go on.
Imagine this. A huge U.S. immigration raid at a Hyundai plant. Sources describe it like something out of a thriller. Workers hid in air ducts. Some even plunged into a pond to get away from officials.
Wow, in air ducts.
Yeah, and jumping into ponds. Apparently 475 Koreans were detained in the end. It's just this stark, almost unbelievable picture of, the intensity of enforcement and what people will do. Seriously, sounds less like real life, more like an unreleased Squid Game episode.
That's quite an image.
Yeah.
And that event was serious enough that Seoul reportedly called an emergency meeting, which highlights the diplomatic side, the economic side.
For sure.
It really makes you ask, what does enforcement at this level mean for global supply chains, for how international workers are treated? Incidents like that can really strain relations and force a hard look at labor practices, immigration policy.
Yeah.
It affects everything.
Shifting gears a bit, but staying with the weight of global events. We also have to acknowledge the tragic, ongoing situation in Ukraine.
Yes, unfortunately.
Sources reported a baby among two killed in Russian drone attack on Kyiv. A government building was also gutted. Just a brutal reminder of the human cost, day in, day out.
And similarly, in Gaza, the humanitarian situation is still incredibly dire.
Yeah.
Sources noted that classrooms have become shelters. Yeah. It's a clear sign of just how many people are displaced, how essential services have broken down, especially for kids. It's vital we report these facts impartially, just showing the deep impact these conflicts have on ordinary people, especially the most vulnerable, and the huge challenges ahead.
These are just immense challenges, reminders of how fragile things are. But let's, maybe just for a moment, look up for a different perspective.
Okay.
Because tonight, there's something visually amazing happening, and thankfully less political. A total lunar eclipse tonight. The moon's going to turn blood red for 82
A
minutes.
blood moon.
Exactly. Visible across Asia, Australia, Africa, Europe. It's like nature's own limited time only cinematic event, like a Netflix special in the sky you absolutely cannot binge watch later.
That's a good way to think about it.
Mm.
It happens when the Earth gets right between the moon and sun, casting its shadow.
Right.
And that reddish color, the blood moon part, that's sunlight filtering through Earth's atmosphere. Our atmosphere scatters the blue light, letting the red light pass through to the moon. It really looked breathtaking. A nice reminder of, the bigger cosmic picture.
Definitely a needed moment of awe. And then finally, let's crash back down to Earth with a jolt of pure capitalism.
Uh-oh. Where are we going now?
The Powerball jackpot. A massive $1.08 Beanie Mountain Saturday draw OUT.
Billion with a B. Again.
With a B. Sources mention previous winners cite cautions as it swells. And of course, the monster tax bill that comes with it.
Yeah, those cautions are real. Sudden lifestyle change, managing the money, dealing with family.
Yeah.
It's not just free cash. It's a life earthquake.
Totally. Imagine winning that much. You could buy enough crap notes to wallpaper a small mansion.
Huh? Bringing it full circle there.
Had to. So, look, we've surfed some seriously wild waves of information this week from, digital diplomatic showdowns and global chess moves to the tragic human side of conflict and policy. We even gazed up at a blood moon and thought about lottery riches. It's been a real whirlwind. Shows just how varied and intense the global story is right now.
And if you try to connect it all, stepping back a bit, it seems clear that in this age of just constant information overload, it's often the unexpected stuff that tells us the most about our world.
Yeah.
How interconnected things are that seem totally separate. Online fights shaping global views, policy tweaks having massive personal impacts. It just paints this picture of a world moving incredibly fast. Information is power, and how that power gets used and seen is always changing.
So, as you keep scrolling through your own feeds, trying to make sense of this whole wild ride, maybe consider this. In a world where leaders are duking it out on social media, where governments are literally chasing workers through air ducts, and where these huge celestial events happen against this backdrop of crisis, how do you sort out what's truly important from all the digital noise? And what responsibility do platforms like X actually have in shaping that whole global conversation?